It's been called the most popular movie series ever filmed, and we're talking with perhaps the most remembered and one of the best-loved youngsters from the Hal Roach Studios, Spanky McFarland. Better known, of course, by that name, but his real name is George Robert Phillips. Good morning, Spanky.
How you doing, Ken?
Real good. How are you?
Man, if I was any better, I couldn't stand it.
I have to tell you, in fact, we started chatting just before we came on. I envied you when I was a youngster because you got to play with little monkeys and all those other kids, and you had such a great time in the movies. I'm wondering if it was really like that.
Well, yeah, it was, as long as we were in front of the camera. But then, of course, when the scene was over with, well, it was, back to school.
Back to school?
Oh, yeah, we had to go to school while we were on the set.
Uh-huh. In other words,
what? 8 hours a day, and out of that 8 hours, we had to get 3 hours worth of schooling.
Yeah. Well, you were pretty young, though, weren't you?
I started when I was 3.
So at that age, you didn't go to school, did you?
Oh, no, but, after just 3 years later I did, when you turned 6,
Yeah.
But, when you're 3, what do you know?
You would have started about 1931? I don't want to give your age away.
Yeah, 31.
And then you were with it for 11 years, I think.
13.
13 years. Okay. I looked at the book by Leonard Maltin and Richard Band, which is just a lot of fun to look through.
Good book.
The Our Gang.
That's the best book there is on the Our Gang.
Uh-huh. But you were in 95 films, according to that book.
95 comedies, and I was in 13 feature-length films.
Bob McGowan, the director, called you a genius.
Well, you got to remember, that's showbiz out there, Ken. And if there was a genius out there, it was probably him.
Really?
Because he could do anything with the kids. The kids would do anything for him. He was loved, and as was everybody on the set. The crew got along very well with the kids, as their job demanded. So, but there were just an awful lot of very talented people out there that I think the term genius would fit. What the hell, there's no such thing as a 3-year-old genius,
But you were a natural. I don't know, the way you talked.
Well, that's a better choice of words, yeah. Better choice of words.
I don't know if it was the kids, maybe it was the director, maybe it was the whole approach that Hal Roach gave, but I know other studios tried to do much the same thing, and they never really had the success that the Our Gang.
They were successful in, like Mickey McGuire, that was a successful thing. And
now, this is interesting. Mickey Rooney was Mickey McGuire, wasn't he?
Yes, that's true.
A little derby hat and a cigar.
And a cigar, that's right.
And those would have been around, about the same time as the Our Gang got started?
About the same time, yeah. But there weren't near as many of them. And of course they were not very popular. They were all right, but I mean they don't enjoy the niche in motion picture filmdom as does the Little Rascals and the Our Gang do now.
They have held up through the years. In fact, I think the Little Rascals comedies are the Our Gang comedies. And is there a difference? When it was called Our Gang?
There is no difference. All of the comedies are Our Gang comedies. The difference comes is when in 1938, Hal Roach sold the Our Gang and all the contracts and all the kids and everything up to MGM, which was just up Washington Boulevard in Culver City. And they continued to make them under the Our Gang title until 1944. But along comes the advent of commercial television, and when Roach sold his package to television, he couldn't call it the Our Gang because he'd sold the title to MGM. So in some of the titles in the earlier comedies, he referred to the kids as the Little Rascals in the Our Gang comedies. So he retained that, so he called his package, the ones that he made, from 1922 to 1938, the Little Rascals. And the ones that are called Our Gang are the ones that were made at MGM from 1938 until the end when they stopped making them in 44. But they're, for that matter, they're all Our Gang comedies.
We saw you recently, or fairly recently, on the Oscars.
Yes,
You were there. Hal Roach got an award.
Yeah, I presented Hal with his honorary Oscar, and that was a big night for all of us.
Do you still feel anything that you must have felt when you were a youngster, when you get around Hal Roach?
Not really. Hal didn't come around the set much. Hal was the businessman. He was the head man, and he pretty much busied himself with the day-to-day business goings on in the studio. If we had a special guest come into the studio, or if there were press coming in for something like that, well, he would make sure that he was on the set, because after all, it was his studio. But he did not have that much to do with with the actual filming of the comedies. Probably starting around 1928, 29, something like that. And he just became the head of the studio and the big shot and the money man.
You know, when you go back and you look at that studio probably turned out more comedy. Laurel and Hardy worked at that studio.
Charlie Chase,
Charlie
Harold
Chase.
Lloyd. Well, yeah.
Even more recent.
It was just a veritable fount of funny.
Even more recently, the Amos and Andy TV show, I think, was a Hal Roach production, was it not? Do you recall?
It could have been in the later years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been, but I don't think it was a production. I think there was an independent producer that was using the facilities.
Okay, but I think what's remarkable is here's Hal Roach, the head of the whole company. Laurel and Hardy have long ago passed away. I believe Charlie Chase is dead.
Yes.
Even a lot of the Little Rascals are no longer with us.
Yeah, there's in fact most of them are no longer with us. The only ones that I know that are alive that are that were main characters is Eugene Morrison, who was Sunshine Sammy, who was the original Our Ganger, by the way. He was the first kid that Hal Roach hired for the Our Gang comedy.
So that would have been during the silent days, huh?
Yes, but the other ones that are still alive are Jackie Cooper and myself, Robert Blake, Tommy Bond, who played Butch, the tough kid, Porky, Dorothy DeBorba, she lives up in Northern California. Joe Cobb, I think, is still alive. But after that, the list gets very, very hard to come by.
Mm-hmm. I was interested to learn that Alfalfa was from, actually born in Paris, Illinois.
That's true, yeah, Paris, Illinois.
And he and his brother went out to visit grandparents, I believe, and they auditioned for Hal Roach.
Yeah,
and got in.
Yeah.
Weezer, a lot of people remember Weezer because he had the Swiss cheese or some kind of terrible smelling stuff smeared on his chest one time in one of the movies.
Yeah.
And he was killed in World War II, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
Farina,
Whatever that book says by Leonard and Dick, you can take that to the bank.
pretty accurate.
Yes. No, it's not pretty accurate. It is accurate.
Is that right? Well, that's good.
That's the Bible.
Do you remember anything? I know you were very young, obviously, but do you remember any kind of happenings day to day? What happened at the Roach Studios? I know they're no longer there anymore. They've been torn down, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
That's really too bad, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it was a terrific landmark in the making of films as well as in Hollywood. Of course, it wasn't in Hollywood; it was in Culver City, as are a lot of the studios and were. But now, to answer your question, Ken, I grew up in the movies, and it was no big shake for me. I was probably 6 or 7 years old before I fully realized that all kids weren't in pictures, because I grew up. If you grew up as a fish, you're a fish. When you grow up, being an actor, that's the normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
It would be unlike bringing a 6 or 7 or 8 year old child from a normal life, from Bloomington, Illinois, into the glamorous environment of Hollywood, and throw him in there, and my gosh, he'd remember every breath he took,
Mm-hmm.
But when you grow up in something like that, it's no big shake,
Yeah. I interviewed Darla Hood when she was at the International Convention of the Sons of the Desert in Chicago, and I asked her about the gang, and she had complimentary things to say about you. Unfortunately, we lost her a couple of years ago.
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
I guess it's been that long.
Yeah,
already.
it has been.
But I asked her, I said, why does it appear whenever Bobby Blake gets on TV, he always has so many negative things to say about working as a child actor? Do you sort of feel that way too, maybe?
Well, I think a lot of it is he does it for effect, Ken. After all, he's still a property out there, and he's got to maintain a profile of recognizability, and I think he thinks that he has to do that, the tough guy image and the braggadocio type thing to maintain his image. And if that's what he thinks, that's fine, because it's his life and it's his career. And if it works for him, that's fine. Whatever works for him.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things he talks about is just absolutely pure fabrication. his mother and daddy wouldn't let him anymore get into some of the trouble that he claims that he and Alfalfa got into to man the moon. They'd have beat him to death. Because, we were supervised, 8 hours a day on that set. And when the shooting was over with, we went home. You didn't stand there and run around the studio.
Mm-hmm. There again.
Now, Alfalfa used to get into some trouble, but not Mickey.
Did he really? Alfalfa met a tragic death, as I understand it, didn't he?
Alfalfa was kind of a free spirit.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I believe he was shot, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
So he died.
But Carl Schweitzer, that was his name. He marched to a different drummer than most of us.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't. Of course, he was one that tried to stay there and tried to stay in the business and was relatively unsuccessful. He did make some motion pictures, but nothing to keep him in bread and beans. And I think it bothered him, and as a result, he was frustrated and I don't know. It's a tough life out there, Ken. If the only thing you know how to do is act, and you can't do that and make a living, then when you're forced to do something else, a lot of times the guys can't handle it.
Well, it happens.
They stay too long at the dance.
It not only happens with youngsters who grow up, but it also happens with adult actors.
Of course, yeah, sure, but more so with kids because they don't have the built-in protection of maturity, and being able to weigh a situation logically and look at it, stand back and look at it and say, well, okay, bother this, bother that, and then make a decision based on maturity and logic. They don't have the benefit of that.
I got to talk
it's doubly hard on them.
I got to talk with Jackie Coogan, and we talked about the Coogan Law, how that came about.
Yeah.
Child actors and how their money should be managed, and I think his, for the most part, was gone. You don't get any residuals when these things are shown on television.
Not a nickel.
And I know that's been a surprise to a lot of folks, really.
Yeah, well, of course, that everybody today, with the advent of television, everybody says, well, you get residuals, and people talk about residuals, and it's kind of a normal thing. But back then, it was not normal. Nobody knew anything about them.
Mm-hmm. And that, I guess that applied to Laurel and Hardy, too. I don't think
of course.
They didn't make a dime when their shows were on television.
No.
It's 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. This is a thrill for me because I have been a fan, as so many other people have, of the Little Rascals for years. I wonder if anybody else has a question, if they'd like to ask you. We could certainly take one at 829-2345. This is Spanky McFarland, not to be confused with about, who knows, maybe a dozen other Spankies or people who claim to be Spanky. Not to be confused with the group Spanky and Our Gang. That's an entirely different one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that poor little girl, I'm beginning to wonder whether she knows who she is or not. And besides that, the group is not very good.
But we're talking with the real Spanky of the Little Rascals fame. You were a salesman for Philco Ford. In fact, that had to give you some sort of pride, I would think, in your life, the fact that you made it. I understand from the book that you didn't want to be a salesman with the term Spanky. You were a salesman with George Phillips.
Well, I wanted to. See, George is my first name, and Robert was after my father, and Phillips is my mother's maiden name, and then of course McFarland. But when I got out of films and I got into the business world, I wanted to make another career for myself and try to be successful without Spanky, and I have done that. And I'm pretty proud of that. I've retired from private business now, as you know, and I'm going to do this college lecture tour and the corporation shows and stuff like that. And there's some other things in the fire for licensing and products. But
what do you do, Spanky, when you go out? Do you take film clips along with you, or what?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we have a 2-hour show. It's the old film clips, and I talk about how it was then and what it was like growing up. And what it was like after I found out that I couldn't work in the movies anymore. And then we also, if we're in the process of trying to find them now, is to get some clips from the 13 full-length motion pictures I made. And then we wound the thing up with a question and answer session, and it's about a 2-hour show.
I bet you that's fun.
It is fun. It's a lot of fun. I did this about 5 or 6 years ago, but I did it on a part-time basis, just on the weekends, which is hard to fill a house in a college on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I managed to do it at several of the colleges. One of note was Kent State, where we had about 2,500 people, SRO, and they gave me a standing ovation when I walked in to do the show, and it kind of got you a little bit,
That has to make you feel good.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Let me see. I think I've got a caller here. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I wanted to know what the little dog's name was, and how did they get that poor little thing to look so ugly?
Well, the poor little thing was a poor big thing. It was a Staffordshire Terrier, which they refer to now as a pit bull, or is a pit bull, which they refer to now as a Staffordshire Terrier, so they can get it registered with the AKC. But they are just not the prettiest dog in the world. And the original one had the natural coloring around his eye. They enhanced that with a little eyebrow pencil, but the natural ring was there. But in the subsequent dog that they used, it was not. So they painted the ring around his eye, but they painted it on the opposite eye. And to answer your question, the dog's name was Pete.
Pete. I could remember when I was in school, I just couldn't wait to get home 3:30 so I could watch The Little Rascal.
There you go. There you go.
A lot of enjoyment out of that. I wish there was some more entertainment for the kids like that today.
Well, they're still around. They're still showing them. And if they're not showing them in your area, call your TV station and say, hey, why don't you get the Rascals back?
Yeah, thank goodness for film.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call, ma'am.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. You're on the air with Spanky. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to tell Spanky I saw my first movie with he in it.
Which one was that? Ma'am?
The Trail of the Lonesome Pine.
Oh, yeah, The Trail of the Lonesome Pine.
Yeah, that's right.
I was out of it and still remembered.
That was a color film, as I recall.
Oh, it was the first successful outdoor Technicolor picture ever made. That was with Henry Fonda and Sylvia Sidney and Fred McMurray, Nigel Bruce, a bunch of stars.
Good film.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Ma'am, thank you for calling. I think we probably lost her. You're on the air with Spanky. Go ahead.
Good morning, Spanky. How are you?
Good morning.
And I was one of my favorite movies with you in it is Forgotten Babies.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember making that one or not, but you know, watching the one baby on top of the stairs that you bring down with a pillow.
Oh, yeah, that was my brother.
That was your brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, your brother worked in the films about as long as you did, didn't he?
On and off, yeah.
Okay.
What kind of safety precautions did they have in that?
Well, they really didn't have a lot of safety precautions. They just watched us very closely is about all. They didn't put us into too many into threatening situations. The studio took good care of us.
Spanky, did you have stuntmen at that time? Did they?
Oh no.
Or stunt kids?
Anything that required something like that was usually shot at a different speed and then speeded up, you know, because they just didn't take any chances with us.
Mm-hmm.
Double, didn't you, Spanky?
Hello.
You had a double?
Did you have it?
I'm not hearing you well.
I don't think you did have a double. You didn't have a double, did you?
I did at one time, yeah. I had a kid named Joe Strzok who was out of Chicago. And he was my he wasn't my double, he was my stand-in. And after he stopped being my stand-in, he went to work for Republic with Smiley Burnett. And when Smiley played the part of Frog, and he played the part of Tadpole.
Okay, sir?
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it. A lot of times those films were done almost on the spur of the moment, weren't they? You might just go all over town and shoot a little scene here.
Oh, no. These were all scripted.
Were they really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
all
guess...
scripted. There was nothing by chance on these things.
I guess I'm going way, way back, probably the days of Max Sennett then, where they would...
Oh, yeah, where, you know, you have an idea and you get a camera and you say, come on, let's go do this. You know?
Yeah, or if there was a fire, they might throw an actor in front of the fire truck and see what happened.
Yeah.
Well, they are fun, and I don't know the secret of success, but for some reason they have held up terrifically over the years.
Yeah. Whatever we did, we did right, and like you say, it's held up.
Yeah, I think it'd be an awful lot of fun to see the performance that you put on. You're going to be touring through the fall and winter months, perhaps?
Well, we're going to do it, you know, whenever during the entire school term, and then of course we will also be interspersing it with shows for the large corporations, and then of course during the summertime we're thinking about maybe doing an overseas thing.
Well, I hope we've got somebody's appetite here. We have State Farm's corporate headquarters here in Bloomington Normal.
At Bloomington Normal, there you go.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they'll bring you to town, or maybe Illinois State or Illinois Wesleyan University might.
We do a 2-hour family type show, or I can reduce it down to like a 30 or a 45-minute motivational thing.
Really?
Which is working very well with the corporation.
Yeah, well, I hope...
I was National Sales Training Director for Philco Ford for 3.5 years, of my 10 years with them, and I know a little about it where I speak.
I guess you do. Spanky, I've enjoyed thoroughly talking with you, and all the best. I hope maybe we can get you to town.
Well, I hope so too, and I will give you my post office box number off the air, and anybody that calls in, if you'd be so kind, maybe you would just forward their inquiries to me.
I'd be happy to. Spanky McFarland, thank you much.
Thank you, Ken.
28 minutes after 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you remember any of that Our Gang music? Some of that is really some fun stuff.